Hi, it's all about automation, and this is Gary Mintchell. This is the 1st of November. Actually, I planned to record this yesterday on Sunday, but forgot. Interesting football games? No, I think not. Anyway, journalists, media people, marketing people, a bunch of us are always curious about, what's the next disruptive technology? And ever since Clayton Christensen wrote his book, or maybe even before, it's like maybe it goes back to the buggy whip manufacturer of the famous Harvard Business Review article of the 50s. Anyway, we're always looking, what's the next big thing? What's the next big thing? What's disruptive? What's going to turn out everything else? And I've been preached by there are technologies where there are evangelists. And for instance, Steve Heckman added inductive automation in California is quite the evangelist for open source. Why would anybody pay for all this proprietary software you get from all these MES vendors and HMI vendors when you can build a product as a company upon open source, which means it's essentially free. The software is, for all intents it's free because people contribute to it out of the goodness of their heart because they're engineers. They're geeks and they just like to make things better. And Linux is a famous example. Linux never made it to the desktop. Sorry, maybe 2 or 3 of you out there are using it, but really it just didn't catch on much. And who knows why? There's a lot of reasons. But Linux did catch on in the enterprise, and some of these other open source things are really big on servers. So there is a huge market. It's just maybe not where we all see. But I'm starting to see a whole bunch of things kind of come together, and I was asking the question a couple of weeks ago when I was at another conference, how disruptive will this open source model where the software is free, companies get into it and they sell services of various kinds, they make things easy for you. And then there's another buzzword that goes along with it you're hearing all the time called cloud. Well, cloud means I keep my stuff, my electronic digital stuff, somewhere. Who knows? It's in the cloud. So it could be a server across the room. It could be a server across the world. It could be a server across the country. And that's the cloud. It's all connected by the internet. And so the cloud, and that enables something called software as a service, where you just buy software kind of like electricity. So I don't have the application on my desk or in my computer. I have the application somewhere. When I need it, I go to it. And that software as a service. And another concept that goes into this is a subscription-based model. So the subscription-based model of pricing is also much cheaper than the per-seat model. So if you've been buying software from all the conventional MES and HMI SCADA vendors, you're buying per seat. Every place you put that, you have to pay for. Every computer it's loaded on, you have to pay for. And it can get darn expensive. And that's good for the software companies. Well, some of them. So anyway, let's combine all these things together. Software as a service, cloud computing, open source for the software, and a subscription-based pricing model, and put all this together, and it's I think there look like there might be some constraints that perhaps people wouldn't trust it enough to buy. Do you trust your internet connection? Probably not for controlling your process, but maybe for transactional stuff where you can keep a local database, and if there was a breakage, you can then send your data off when it's restored. Our connections are that reliable. They're pretty darn reliable, just not 100%. So anyway, so Steve Heckman in Inductive Automation has that kind of a model of HMI SCADA software and also blending into MES. I'm reading about other people, and as a matter of fact, even SAP, and maybe Oracle, except people are wondering if that's just a ruse by those 2 big companies trying to deflect people. And hopefully 2% of the people that want that maybe will buy their offering, and the rest will continue to buy the monstrous, huge packages. Good God, I was thinking this morning on the way back up from breakfast that the first time I bought, back in those days it was called MRP, which today is called MES system, Yeah, I remember signing that contract, and it was with IBM. I bought an IBM. I forget the name of it now, but it was like I signed my life away. I was paying X amount of dollars a month, which sounds a lot even today, and that was 30 years ago. And I felt like, geez, it's just like in perpetuity. It's like, holy smoke, IBM making a lot of money off of me, and I'm just a little guy. So anyway, so we're looking at all this, so the curiosity is this going to gain traction? Will IT people buy this? And last week I interviewed Debbie Moynihan, who's director of marketing of kind of a new company. It's called Fuse Source, FUSC, like the little things in your, you used to have in your breaker box or whatever. But Fuse Source, it has been around for a while. But its model is all this. It's built on open source. Matter of fact, a lot of their employees are leading contributors to open source projects. It does sell things. It sells on a subscription. It has documentation and some applications on top of the open source. There are things to sell. There's services to sell. There's ways to help it. There's hosting to sell. And anyway, what they're selling is messaging. Not instant messaging, but messaging between applications. Sometimes applications don't really talk well together. In our business, that's why we have OPC, is to get different things to talk together that normally wouldn't. So they are seeing over 100% growth a year the last few years. They are in IT shops. I said, okay, if IT people are buying it, that's kind of like a little blessing. And if they get the little blessing from them, then those of us in manufacturing should be looking at this sort of stuff too. A couple of other things. There was a MIT Sloan, the most recent MIT Sloan management review, has a little thing that says that there was a study, and the top performing manufacturing companies, as opposed to the lower performing ones, are 3 times more likely to use data analytics. Now, data analytics, first you have to have the data, and that comes from maybe your HMI SCADA MES system. That's a huge data aggregator. And then you need what's called manufacturing intelligence on top of that to analyze all that data so you can do something with it. That's the buzzword of the last few years, actionable data. So anyway, you need that. The top companies are more prone to use that than middle and lower companies, 3 times. Combine this with a recent IT Conversations. I don't know if you're into that. That's a podcast series, and sorry, I wrote it too small. I can't read it. It's a podcast with Simon Wardley, and I'll put the link in the show notes. But his thing was that by going into the cloud, you facilitate more innovation. So he says cloud computing generates more innovation. So for innovative, we're reducing cost. Yeah, we're getting more benefits. More usability, easier to use, easier to deploy. All you have to do is like boot into your browser and you're in with the appropriate passwords and all that kind of stuff. But and probably security might even be better. You don't have to worry about so much of your own. I don't know about that, but anyway, I'm looking at this, and I think it bears looking into and asking your vendors where they're going with this whole thing. It's looking very interesting. I'm seeing more and more companies doing it. Some of the mainline companies are trying to figure out how to deflect into that and be able to make money, and yet provide a cheaper, less expensive alternative. So anyway, that's my thought for the end of October. Software as a service, cloud computing, subscription-based pricing, new ways to do software. Is this disruptive? If you think it's disruptive, put a note on my blog or send me an email at gminchell@automationworld.com. In other words, going from here, have a good November. I'm about to walk over to the Orange County Convention Center and begin my week of indoctrination with Rockwell Automation. So this week the news will be mostly Rockwell. So have a good month. See ya.